Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. It's me, your boy Cryptid, checking out another video today, like always, and it's going to be about the Hoyoverse is playing the long game. I have no idea what this is about, but the title is interesting. It seems to be circulating around, and so without further ado, let's check it out and see what this guy has to say. For the record, it's Fleur, FL2UR is the YouTuber.
Investing in victory means playing the long game. Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Wait a
Always
minute.
good quoting the Art of
Didn't
War.
Topaz say that?
Very nice intro. Love the vibes.
Alright, what's the number one goal of any game company? Depending on who you ask, the answer may be different.
The goal is to always sell as much as they can to create a product that will retain customers. If it's a one-off single-player game, to make something so good that no matter whether it's the same IP or a different IP, as long as the customer trusts you to make a good game, it'll create a retention player base. Same thing with free-to-play service games that have battle passes or skins or anything you can buy. They want uh, you want to create an addicting cycle, right? They want to something that'll make you play it every day, something that is at least relatively fun, and something that has constant events to keep the player from new skins or new characters coming out to drive your attention to go. They always want to keep either short-term a player base retention, like on a monthly basis or on a patch basis, or for long-term. This game is good, so the next game, like if you like Baldur's Gate, next time Larian puts out a title, you're most likely going to check it out because you loved Baldur's Gate. Same thing applies. So all in all, it's just customer and player retention as much as possible and to gain their trust as much as possible to ultimately get their money to keep doing what you're doing.
A developer might say it's to create the best game they can, while on the other hand, a consumer might say that the company just wants to make as much money as possible, depending on how they feel about the game itself.
Which can both be true. The developer can create a game that they love, that they put a lot of work into, but in order for them to continue doing what they're doing, they can't just do it for free. They're going to have to make money off of it. It's just how the world works. So both can be true. It's not one or the other always.
If you're one of the two people left on the planet that still think any of these companies have goodwill, maybe you'd say it's a mix of both. Gacha games, though, they're different because they actually have three goals, all of which are connected and all of which are of equal importance. Let's go in order here and talk about step one.
All right, what are the
first goal of
gacha
the gacha
goals?
game is to get you in the door. There's a variety of
Of
ways they
course,
can go about doing this, especially in the current post-Genshin gacha.
which both can be true for just getting you to play a game and for getting you to spend that first dollar. Because a lot of gacha games and mobile games have that just bundle for 99 cents. It's always getting your foot in the door. You spend that 99 cents, it's downhill from there.
Gacha landscape. Some might try to just go with the basics and offer a really compelling story. Some might try to sell you unique gameplay or cool animations, and some might try to get your attention with
All can have their niche.
lore. Others might
Oh
go a
yeah,
different route
lore.
and shower you with early game rewards, and this is what Hoyoverse does. When you look at any of the three current major Hoyo titles, the new player experience for them is amazing. No matter where you look, you're getting rewards thrown at you left and right from both the mail, the content offered, and different incentives to get you to keep playing. In Genshin, you have tons of regions to explore, hundreds of quests to do, thousands of achievements to collect, endgame to tackle, events to get caught up in, and so much more. While Honkai Star Rail is newer and technically has less overall content, it takes that early game generosity further by offering incentives for doing the content, for example by giving rewards to players like the guaranteed 5-star unit on the beginner warp and bonus rolls at specific account level thresholds.
Honkai Star Rail does a really good job trying to retain you. The welcome back rewards. There's the constant for 10 pulls every patch. Uh, I would say they're relatively generous on all their events, and they really do reward you for being consistent rather than playing only when a new character comes out.
On top of that, old events are permanently available for you to complete at any time, and you
which is
can
a
get
big
most of the
W for them to
rewards
keep
from
the old
them.
events
Zenless
at.
Zone Zero is even newer than Star Rail is, yet it still has multiple story chapters to clear, both easy and hard content to do, an absolutely massive amount of events, plus the same quality of life that HSR brought with the beginner banner and permanent events. In all three of these titles, there's hundreds upon hundreds of roles available, all right at your fingertips, just waiting for you to collect. You can get multiple of the highest rarity units from the free currency offered by these games. That is, assuming you're willing to put in the time to play through all of it, or, you could.
It doesn't cost money, but it costs a crap ton of your time to put in the amount of time. It takes days of fully playing this game to complete content if you started late. If you haven't been keeping up with it, if you miss a day or two, it feels like you've been gone a week, maybe more, because content keeps pumping out so fast. It's something you need to do every single day. So it doesn't cost much, but it costs your time.
Just get your account managers to do it for you. That's not even mentioning that both HSR
Ooh,
and Genshin had selectors
but
within the
true.
last year to pick a standard banner unit from. So, all that seems pretty generous, right? Why is the company's goal to just get you in the door, or in other words, what's the reason behind all the generosity? Well, if you remember, I said they actually have 3 goals that are all connected, and the why is the second goal that Hoyoverse has. Once you're in the door, what comes next? Well, it's getting you to stay. Like, imagine you're a newish player in a Hoyo
Create
game.
the
You've gone through the
addiction.
story and the exploration content available. You've taken all the generous gifts that Hoyo gives you as you've been building out your account, and you're finally ready to take on the
It give with them giving all these gifts, giving all these pulls, giving all this premium currency, giving these free characters. It gives you a sense of fake investment. Of, well, I have all of this going on for me. I might as well keep going, keep building my roster, keep getting more into it. When in reality, you haven't done anything. You've barely played the game, but they're thrusting all these rewards at you. It almost gives you kind of an addicting feeling of maybe give me more rewards if I keep playing. Maybe next patch they'll shower me with more rewards then too. It creates an addicting loop of endorphins shooting off. We get those pools, get these gems, get this, get that. It gets pretty addicting. I mean, that's what these gacha games are. It's just gambling simulators on your phone.
more difficult content the game has to offer. This is where you'd probably start looking at endgame and then seeing how you can clear it. Do you think
Yeah.
you understand the game well enough to attempt it? Do you have the characters you think you need? Are they built well enough? And if so, how much of it can you get through?
Ooh,
Well, once you have the answers to all that and
not
just,
built well enough.
start trying, you'll undoubtedly be able to clear some of it. That is, until you hit the wall. This is the wall that you'll reach at some point in every gacha you play, but especially so in Hoyoverse games. Your units won't be leveled high enough, or you didn't invest enough in your gear, or maybe you got the wrong characters and don't have what you need to make any progress. This is where the third goal that Hoyoverse has comes into play. By this point in your account's progress, you've most likely already invested enough time to clear the main content, and you've also probably started thinking about how to clear the more difficult stuff, so you've
Right.
actually already fallen right into Hoyo's hands. See, their third goal is
Activate a
actually
trap
very
card.
simple, is to create a wall in the game or a threshold that you can't cross at the current moment in time, and then it's to figure out how to get you across that threshold.
Which it this is really relevant to what's going on now, talking about all the power creep and HP inflation going on in HSR. A lot of people are getting too comfortable. People getting too it was getting too easy that people are clearing with units that were a couple banners behind. So they did, they increased the HP by like double, triple, 5 times even sometimes. Uh, it was 100,000 at the beginning of the game, about, and now it's in the millions. For bosses, it scaled so exponentially that it's becoming harder and harder, unless you get the brand new units like Ribby, who give you 24% res pin all the time, and then on the alt gives you a 30% damage boost with AoE follow-ups. So every time you ult, she does a mini ult and it hits a follow-up for even more damage. It is crazy because they're forcing characters that you may or may not want onto you just to clear in-game content. And as it stands, I didn't even clear MOS 12 because my characters just aren't strong enough. I have almost 100% crit rate on most characters, either 160 to 200% crit damage on my main DPS characters. I am pretty well built, I would like to say, and I am struggling immensely, even with because I haven't pulled on the last couple damage dealers. It's my bad, right? I didn't throw money at the game because I wanted to save up for Castereth, but I got Tribby. I gave in a little bit. I got Tribby. I used my guarantee pool on her, and I still can't complete the content. Which whatever. I'm gonna use Tribby for casters. But it's still, it feels really bad that because that wall, it doesn't feel like you can get over it. It doesn't feel like you can get enough damage unless you have light cones and eidolons. The walls they create are really impossible to get over unless you're throwing money at the game at the moment.
Or in short, Gyat. Wait.
What? Wait a second.
The idea behind Gyat is that Hoyo wants to get you to a point where you're willing to spend something. Like, if you can't clear the content that you want to clear, there's basically 3 roads in front of you. The first path is pretty simple. It takes you down the line where you stop playing the game, because after all, if you can't clear any content, then why would you
Where's
bother?
the fun?
And
of course.
Obviously, Hoyo wants to avoid you taking that path at all costs. So, Hoyo adds incentives for players to actually want to clear the content, and they do it by offering a chunk of the rewards you get per patch for participating in it. For example, in the current 5.4 Genshin patch, a free-to-play player can get around 60 rolls for doing every single bit of content in the patch. Of those 60 rolls, 15 of them come from full clearing both of the endgames that are available. If 25% of your rolls come from clearing content, then you know that players have a very, very large incentive to actually attempt to do it. The thing to note with these endgame content rotations is that they follow.
You only get 6 pulls a patch? I feel like that's low. I mean, I feel like in Honkai Star Rail, you get at least 80 a patch. Guaranteed at least one 5-star, feels like every single time. 60 is crazy.
A strict schedule. What this means is that in every patch there's essentially an allocated amount of pulls set for the story, events, and other stuff like that, whereas you'll always get roughly the same amount of pull currency from endgame content, assuming you can clear it. This means that the actual amount of pulls that you're intended to get in the 5.4 patch is 45 and not 60, which makes those extra 15 all the more important. After all, 45 pulls is just a little bit over half of what you need to hit soft pity on a 5-star. Very sneaky,
Yeah.
Hoyo. So all that brings us to path 2,
Devious
which is spending
even.
your time. If you can't clear now, well, just log in every day and do your dailies, spend your resin, do all the events, upgrade your gear, and do everything else that comes with these kinds of games. If you commit your life to the game, you'll certainly be able to clear in the future. Hoyo demands a significant amount of effort from you to get all the rewards that they dangle in front of you. The worst thing is that it feels like you barely have enough time to complete everything. In Genshin, events are too short. For example, the Lantern Rite celebrations only lasted for 2 weeks, and in ZZZ we get so many events that it can honestly kind of get a little overwhelming.
That is exactly why I took it upon myself to quit ZZZ. Because it just felt like they were just throwing mundane event after mundane event at you just to keep you playing, just to keep you, well, now you got this to do, now you got that to do. It felt like you couldn't take a break. It almost felt like a full-time job just playing that one game. They need to relax. You are a mobile gacha game. You're not my boss. So I dropped that game and I picked up Tribe 9 instead. So I'm playing Honkai Star Rail. Let's see how long that lasts. And Wuthering Waves at 9. I'm feeling good. There's not too much to do in any of the games. There's just enough to do to balance all 3 of them. But ZZZ, it just felt like too much. They were just throwing event after event at you for no reason. It was just a lot.
I guess there's never a lot going on in HSR, but that's a whole different issue. Honestly, there's usually enough stuff going on that it feels like Hoyo would do anything to keep us from cheating on them with other games, except for actually treating their players well. And this brings us to path 3, where it gets even more insidious, because this is the route where you spend money. If you don't have enough gear or characters leveled to clear right now, well, there's this funny little button you can press to refresh your daily stamina and farm more.
What
Don't
a
have the
silly
right
guy
units to
right
be able
there.
to clear, like maybe you're missing a support for your DPS or vice versa. Well, Hoyo's going to make absolutely sure that the wish button will be on your screen at all points during gameplay, and they'll also ensure that the shop button is available every single time you open the wish screen. You know, just in case, right? So you've gone down path 2 or 3 and now you're in. You've fallen for their trap and you're across
Don't
the
fall
threshold
into
of
the
no
trap,
return.
guys.
You've invested your time or your
Keep
money, so
strong,
you should get
brothers.
something out of it, right? Well, unfortunately, you got hooked, line and sinker, and now you're in it for the long haul. You just don't realize it yet. At this point, all of your free resources are gone and dried up, apart from what they ever so generously give you each patch. But you can be damn sure that they'll make it seem like you're getting a whole lot more. One tactic that companies use to not only get players in the door, but also to increase potential earnings is by going hard on marketing. Sensor Tower reported that between Q2 of 2023 and Q1 of 2024, which coincidentally was the first year of Honkai Star's release, Hoyoverse invested nearly $300 million
Oh my
into digital
god.
marketing for their games, which was over a 487% jump compared to their previous year where they spent less than 100.
Keep these numbers in mind anytime they say they don't have a budget or something. Or if you feel like they're not putting a lot to their game. They spent $300 million just in marketing. They have the money to do whatever they want. Guaranteed.
100 million advertising Genshin and their previous titles. They advertise their games everywhere. They're on media sites like YouTube, Twitch, Bilibili, and so on. Like, if you're watching gaming related videos without an ad blocker, you can't go more than a few videos without seeing an ad for at least one of their games. I mean, I'm sure we've all seen the Natasha ad video at least once while browsing around, right?
I'm Natasha,
Yeah.
an underworld
Oh my
doctor.
god, it was
Feeling
like
sick?
PTSD seeing this
There's
all the
also
time.
sponsored videos, streams,
Wouldn't
and
stop.
events where they go out of their way to show new people the game and try to encourage them to play it themselves. Like ZZZ sponsored EVO, and even more crazy, HSR sponsored the broadcast of the Olympics on NBC. But it's not
Oh,
just
that's cool.
digital
I didn't know
marketing,
that.
because they also do a lot of events to try and build their community. For example, they host events like Hoyoverse, and they do annual streams for both regular patches as well as bigger events that are themed after the new region for patch cycle changes with their major games. On top of all of that, they do concerts, collabs, pop-up events. They're extremely active on various social media sites like Twitter and the like, and they show up at major events like Anime Expo, Anime NYC, Gamescom, the Game Awards, the Tokyo Game Show, and a ton
They
of
are
others.
everywhere.
Outside of IRL marketing, another point that's very important to note here is that Hoyo markets the characters they release as content for their respective games. There's a reason that almost every time a new character is released, the ads for the game get updated to reflect that. They want you to always be seeing the new stuff because if it gets you excited to log in, then that's a +1 on their player retention count. Even if you're someone that stopped playing at some point, all it may take is one super hot character and then you're right back into their clutches again. FOMO comes into pretty big play here as well. Remember that every time a character's on banner and pullable, they're only there for a limited time. When they're gone, until whenever Hoyo decides it's time to pull them out of the basement again. This can result in a wait for
And that, whenever they pull him out of the basement, it could be any number of things. Like Dr. Ratio, we still haven't seen a rerun of him. I don't think, at least. But I mean, he was released that one time for free, and we never saw him again. So they do that on purpose. I think they use Dr. Ratio as an example at this point because everybody thinks about that character when they're like, I wonder when they'll be on rerun again. We'll never know. I mean, Sunday's probably getting a rerun here soon. And he was only just released not too long ago. But characters like Ratio, uh, they really don't have a rhyme or reason, just kind of when they feel like it. So when you think about that, it puts a lot into perspective of you'll never know if you'll see a character on rerun, and it puts more of that FOMO into place. Oh, I don't have the stuff for Tribi right now. I'm gonna wait for the rerun. You'll never know when that is. It might be next year for all you know. And it just makes you think about it, and it's really it puts a lot on your mind when you like, oh, maybe I can't wait for the rerun because who knows when. I gotta get the character now. I gotta spend that $100 now.
a character being upwards of close to 2 years. Looking at you, Shenhe. Besides feeling like you've missed out, it basically means that you won't have a whole lot to do if you don't end up getting any characters in the patch you're playing, especially if there's no explorable content to hold you over. And all this does is further incentivize players to go for things that they might not necessarily want. This all allows Hoyo to actually take a pretty lazy approach to the actual content they release for their game, because if the character is the content, then what incentive does Hoyo have to actually create anything aside from that? I mean,
Characters are not content, and developers need to realize that. If you release a character and that's pretty much all you have not released anything. Characters are a given. Content is something you can do with the characters or do something with other characters. Characters are not content and they never will be.
Hell, I know firsthand a few people that log into ZZZ on a daily basis just to walk around as their favorite character in that game. And Hoyo knows this. They heavily market their characters through different trailers and teasers, which just promotes the idea that you can get invested in the characters themselves rather than whatever content and story you have available to actually play with them. While there might not always be something exciting going on in the game, they'll always make it seem like there's something to get invested into surrounding the game. If it's not the current character, it's the next. If it's not one game, it's another. And this is all part of their trap. They want you to always be thinking about their games because once you're in,
you're here forever.
Trapped
so
in
now
the
you're in for the
clutches.
long haul. What next? Well,
Begging
to
to be
explain, let me
released.
walk you through a scenario from my own life. It might seem unrelated, but just trust me. All the way back in 2014 when I built my first gaming computer, my friend and I decided to go with a Corsair power supply for it, and I've even still got the email of that. That power supply did end up having issues when I first got it, but not only did Corsair give me a replacement, they also gave me an upgrade to the 850i from the 750 that I previously
very
had.
nice.
And believe it or not, that upgraded power supply is still going strong in my current computer over 11 years later.
Congratulations.
So you might be
man.
wondering why I'm talking about old computers and power supplies. Well, it's because as a result of this scenario, I now recommend Corsair equipment as a whole to friends, to family, and others who I built PCs for in the past. As a result of the good interaction I had with Corsair customer support and the power supply that is
There is no better advertising or advertisement, I should say, than a happy customer. Someone who is happy about the product, they will recommend that to every one of their friends, and then their friends will recommend it to their friends. A good word from a happy customer to a trusted company is better than any millions, hundreds of millions of dollars of advertisement they could throw out in front of you. Because you could see these advertisements, you could see Natasha just sitting there talking to you. Doesn't mean you're gonna play the game. But if your best friend is like, yo, I've been playing Honkai Star Rail, I know you like turn-based games. Honkai Star Rail has been like the best turn-based game I've played ever. And I have so much fun. I love the characters and everything. They're like, oh, I saw the commercial for that. I'll give it a try. It word of mouth is best advertisement. Hands down, as long as you put out a good product people will like, them talking about it is the best thing that can happen.
lasted me over 11 years, I have some trust in their parts and some faith that their company will do right by me as a consumer. Whenever I buy PC parts now, I'm always on the lookout for Corsair parts first because I developed a sense of loyalty over time towards their products before any others. How this relates to Hoyo is that every single thing Hoyo does is under the motive of them creating that same sense of loyalty. They want us as the players to think positively of them, and they do this through everything discussed so far. Being generous early on into our playthroughs, giving out freebies like standard banner characters, and the rare example of Dr. Ratio that HSR got are all examples of them trying to get you invested in them.
That we've never seen again.
And that's not even mentioning the asinine amount of marketing that they do so their products are always on your mind. The more positively you feel about them, the more likely you are to get interested whenever they do different things like events or launch new games like HSR and ZZZ. What this does is it brings you into their ecosystem. Just like how I use and recommend Corsair computer parts, someone that likes Hoyo games will be just as likely to do the same with Hoyo products. For example, a lot of people tried HSR simply because it was a Hoyoverse game, while Hoyo undoubtedly spent
Yeah, even though it had nothing to do gameplay wise as Genshin Impact, just because it had them making the game, people flocked to it like moths to a flame.
absolute ton of money on marketing on top of building that loyalty from their older games like Genshin, there's no denying that a good chunk of the success the game had is from people that already wanted more from Hoyo. Something to keep in mind here though is that in comparison to my scenario with Corsair, the Hoyoverse ecosystem isn't all roses because you have to look at the context surrounding
Supremely
it. Like
toxic
Corsair
community.
gaining a loyal customer by having good customer support isn't something particularly insidious. They just wanted me to think of them first when I bought computer parts going forward. On the other hand,
Absolutely.
Hoyo's goal isn't just to get you in the door, it's to keep you gambling and spending more and more and more every single time you play one of their games. Like, for example, if you buy merch of your favorite Genshin character at an event, is Is it a good product? Sure, the quality is probably really
maybe,
nice, and
depends.
you wouldn't have gotten it if you didn't want it, right? But it only serves the purpose of getting you more invested into whatever character you bought that merch of, and therefore Hoyo as a whole. Whenever you see that merch at home, you'll always be reminded of where it comes from. So what happens the next time that character's on rate up in your favorite gacha game? Seeing that merch every single day would probably incentivize you to roll for more copies, or maybe you'll get the weapon if you
100%.
don't already have it.
People have a very unhealthy habit of choosing one character and becoming overly attached to them, even though it's just a clump of pixels. Uh, and they'll buy all the merch related to them, make sure they E6 the character. They'll do everything in their possible in their power that they possibly can to make sure that character is always relevant, both in game and in their mind.
After all, they're your favorite, right? Maybe you're not a merch person and you're just a hardcore gacha gamer, always on the lookout for the new hot game. If you're already playing Genshin and Hoyo releases the new hot game Honkai Star Rail, you're probably going to start playing that one too. Now, you're not only in the Genshin space, but the Star Rail one as well. There's more chances to find characters you like, more stories to get invested in, new generous content to play since the game has just started, and most importantly for Hoyo, more chances for you as the consumer to pull out your wallet and swipe just a little bit to get you started. So now we're at the part where I get to tell you why this is all a problem. Apart from the obvious point of saying it's a gacha, of course it's a problem. You might have read the title of this part of the video and been a little bit confused because the traditional way that saying goes is actually the opposite. With Hoyo games though, it's just not like that. See, something Hoyo's been doing for years now is always making it seem like the next thing is going to be better than what we have now, even when that isn't always the case. I mean, that's all the marketing that we've been talking about. To be at least a little bit fair here, they do actually have patches in their games where it seems like things are good. But something worth noting here is that those good things come with a cost. First, we can take a look at a specific example from one of their games, and the easiest one to bring up is Genshin. I don't know if you guys have ever looked at the pull tracker for Genshin, but there's 2 patterns in there related to specific times of the year. Did you notice it? If you didn't, it's the specific patches that offer a lot of rewards, with the following patches having a big drop off, and here's the points where that happens. Don't recognize anything special about those patches? Well, those are both the Chinese New Year patches as well as the anniversary patches. Both of these are meant to be a time where you get to celebrate, right? Like another year has passed and the game is still going strong. So us as players deserve to be showered with rewards and have a great time. To be fair to Hoyo, it generally is a great time. We get a lot of rewards as big events going on IRL and a ton of other things. But then the end of the patch happens. Now, going into the next patch, what are we greeted with? A hell of a lot less rewards. Seems weird, right? Well, not really if you think about it in terms of balancing. Hoyo's goal isn't actually to reward us at these times of the year, it's just to make it seem like they are.
Give you spurts of that endorphin to get you a little bit happy, like, oh, they're giving the stuff, man. I gotta get into the game again, man. We gotta play this. And then they go back to giving pennies.
If we get anything extra, they'll be sure to withhold that from the next patch's rewards to keep the average the same. If we get 100 pulls on an anniversary patch and only 50 the next, then the average amount of pulls between the 2 patches is actually only 75. Doesn't seem too generous now, don't you think? Looking past just the rewards, we can look at the other things like quality of life and also the recently announced potential buffs for characters in HSR. These are things that Hoyo can do at any time, but they hold it above our heads like a cookie jar while saying, "No, not until I say you can have it." Even on the rare occasions that we do get those things, there's always something at play that makes it not as simple as it seems. Like for the buffing.
The reason they're taking so long to buff the characters is they're trying to figure out a good balance of making the characters not feel like shit, but making them not feel too good either. So people will stop complaining that they're terrible and they can't do anything, but they're not going to even come close to overshadowing any of the new characters that are already out or about to be out. They're trying to find that nice sweet balance. That's why it's taking them so long. So they had plenty of time to try and figure out numbers or maybe change up skills or whatever they're doing. They want them to be good, but definitely nowhere near too good. They want to find a good middle ground so they feel okay. So
System
people
in
stop
HSR.
complaining.
Don't get me wrong, I can't help
Just
but
to
be at
take
least
off
a
some
little
heat.
bit excited by the prospect of being able to use my old characters again. As per usual with Hoyo though, this all comes with a caveat of context. Every character released in that game is almost always guaranteed to be stronger than the last one is. So for example, if their character Blade gets buffed whenever they implement this system, it's only a matter of time before he becomes a dumpster tier character again as stronger and stronger characters are released after him. Unless they
Exactly.
actually implement the system properly, this quality feature really isn't all that impressive. For more general quality of life stuff, it can take years to implement, and even if we do get it, it's always done with a Hoyoverse twist. I mean, how long have we been asking for gear loadouts in Hoyo games, only to get these awful auto-equip systems instead? How
Uh, not for nothing. Wu already threw that out there. No one asked for it. Just saying. Took like 2 minutes for them.
long have we been asking to farm stuff like talent books and weapon materials in Genshin only for them to put out a survey asking us if that's something that we really want? Hell, even Wuthering Waves added loadouts recently. Talk about
Exactly.
Genshin could
Right
never.
there.
These are tactics that Hoyo pulls across all of their games, from big events and anniversaries to quality of life, but it doesn't stop there, because they also do this when they release new games. Remember, they've built an ecosystem that we're all trapped in. So what this means is that not only do we get screwed by the things previously mentioned, we also get screwed whenever they want to launch their next title. And you could see this when both HSR and ZZZ released. HSR released on April 26th of 2023. What was going on in Genshin at the time, you might ask? Version
Nothing.
3.6, where they were running rerun banners. While reruns are nice, it's pretty undeniable to say that they don't sell super well, nor do they make the vast majority of the community super excited to log in and play. Apart from those reruns, we did actually have a small region release to explore, but not only was its entire purpose to put a bow on the Sumeru desert exploration, but it was also the third desert region released in a row, resulting in not that many people being actually super excited for it. In other words, it was
rough, buddy,
basically a
rough.
major filler patch where people were looking for something else to do. So what did Hoyoverse ever so generously offer for players to do instead? Play their new game, of course, Honkai Star Rail, a new and exciting space fantasy RPG where everything is new and fresh and exciting, rather than just stick to the same old desert that we've been exploring for the past 6.
The problem with one big company making all these games is that they strategically make every game suck in cycles. Genshin's gonna suck, so HRSR is gonna be good. HSR is gonna suck, so ZZZ is gonna be good. ZZZ is gonna suck, so let's be real, Genshin's never gonna be non-sucky ever again. But if they're gonna keep it kind of like a cycle like that, they want to make you rotate between the games because they all have the same payment cycle. That money all goes to the same person. They're different games, but they're just different. They're the same game with different skins. Uh, and so it puts you in a death spiral.
Months. This then repeated in Honkai Star Rail when Hoyoverse's next game launched, Zenless Zone Zero. ZZZ released on July 4th of 2024. What was going on in HSR at the time? The end of 2.3, where there was absolutely nothing to do after you pulled Firefly and did a tiny bit
Nothing.
of story. I remember that patch vividly, because for 4 weeks straight after finishing that story, the only thing I had to do in that game was log in, spend my daily stamina, and then Alt F4 the game. It says something when that patch had 5 events total, 2 of which were freebie rewards, and 2 of which were simply events where you got double the amount of resources for spending your stamina.
So essentially nothing
So
happened.
since there was absolutely nothing going on in HSR, what could you do? Once again, Hoyo ever so
They drag you
generously
to their
swooped
other
in
game.
and launched their new game, Zenless Zone Zero.
How generous
Everything
and
that
kind they
Hoyoverse
are.
does has a cost. While it may seem like things are getting better, it usually ends up worse soon after. And that's the cost that we as the players of their games feel. Whether it's for rewards, simple quality of life features, or game releases, they always try to screw us in some way, and it's for one reason. Hoyoverse doesn't see us as anything more than a walking wallet.
What are you?
Alright, congrats. You've either made it this far in the video, or you just skipped directly to this section, so welcome in if you did that. Apologies if I get a bit heated in this section, but this is something important to me, and
Let it
also
all
something
out,
that I'm
man.
just passionate about. Over the years, it's become obvious that Hoyo is only interested in their long con. Their goal isn't to create a good experience, it's just to make it feel like what we're getting is actually worth something. They go
They don't
out
want a good experience. They want you to be stuck in their endless cycle of give me money. I don't care what game it's for, but give me money.
of their way to get as many people as possible to play their games, and then structure the first few patches of them to secure us as loyal customers. After that point, they just want to keep us in a revolving door throughout their variety of games. If you don't have anything to do in one game, you can be sure the others will have stuff going on to spend your time and, more importantly, your money in. I mean, who needs real content when the next limited character can be shoved down our throat every other week across all their games? Like,
Ooh,
everything I've
artificial
talked about in this
content,
video
my
is evidence that
favorite.
showcases Hoyo doesn't really give a shit about us, they're just interested in whatever they can get out of our pockets for the lowest possible amount of effort from them. And what that means is that whatever we get from them is basically just the leftover scraps off their dinner table. Hoyo knows that we're willing to overlook things like the missing quality of life, the lack of real content, and the insane amount of time it takes to fix any problems the games have if they stuff us full of rewards early on and try to essentially love bomb us whenever we get upset. By the time the excitement of a new game release wears off,
Or they cry on a live stream.
and all we've got is the leftover garbage, they can get away with doing the bare minimum, but by that point, their hope is that we're in way too deep to notice. Unfortunately for Hoyo, their con is very, very noticeable at this point. The small bits of quality of life and the generosity that they try to feed us just doesn't cut it anymore. The revolving door is getting old at this point. The lack of quality of life is getting old at this point. Our characters standing in a circle for 90% of the story in their games is getting old at this point. The
Oh, it hits
complete
hard,
and
man.
utter
It hits hard.
disregard
It's
for the
brutal.
community's wants and needs is especially getting old. And that's not even mentioning their blatant and prominent greed that is showcased across all of their games except for ZZZ for now. And I specify for now because the fun times that these games have are only temporary. It's a matter of time before their next game launches, and by that point, it'll be ZZZ on the chopping block. It is just such a shame that this company is using this awful business model and these terrible practices to make things worse and worse and worse as time.
Guys, you know what they are? I'm gonna have to say it. They're greedy and stupid. Just so greedy. The greedy is bold, though. Greedy is big, bold, and capitalized. Stupid is just normal.
Time goes on. Because if you look past the bullshit that Hoyo
We're
pulls
more
to try to keep
stupid
us
for playing
invested
their
in their
games at this
games,
point.
there's actually some good stuff underneath. But it just doesn't matter when you have to look past the hundreds of problems that these games have just to see it. Like, I love these games. I have logged into Genshin every single day since that game launched. I did the same for HSR and ZZZ too. I've been a loyal player because for a long time, it felt worth it to me. But I just can't feel that way anymore with the current state of their games. Honestly, they never
It
really
feels
did
too
enough to
bad.
deserve our loyalty to begin with, which is why it's so important that we both recognize and speak up about these terrible practices that Hoyo follows. If we don't advocate for these games and this company to be better, then all we'll have is whatever bait Hoyo dangles in front of us to keep us here. If we stay in their revolving door, it won't matter when players quit one of their games because they'll have the next piece of bait ready. From Genshin to HSR, from HSR to ZZZ, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me a third time, and I'll make an entire YouTube channel to complain about your company. As this video ends here, I just want to say thank you so much for watching.
You know, it really just boils down to we need to voice ourselves and make sure they know we don't like how they are treating us as a player base, as customers, as just their audience, really. Uh, and if they don't make their games better, if they don't try harder, we need to just have respect for ourselves and go to a different game who's better. There's plenty of other gacha games out there. If you love the thrill of the gamble, there's plenty of other gacha games that still have a 50-50 system. Uh, but you don't have to be stuck in their cycle. I see plenty of people quitting HSR now, quitting ZZZ. A lot of people have already quit Genshin. It's just their greedy perspective is just being shown through now. It's just bleeding through their mask, and it's hard to not notice it now. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Thank you all for watching, and have a good one. Peace.